Welcome to the Couch Scouts podcast. We provide league-winning analysis, advice, and tools to help you dominate your league and build a dynasty. Scout, draft, win. Here's your host, Matt Cooper.
Hello, and welcome to the Couch Scouts podcast, episode 127. I'm your host, Matt Jackson. With me, as always, I got my co-host, Matt Rupert.
How you doing, my man?
Doing good, man. Another week where Cooper is out of town doing some stuff. We're holding down the podcast, and we're talking QBs again. We talked a little bit of QBs last week when we talked Mendoza, and then went on the bonus podcast and talked Garrett Nussmeier. And now we're back talking QBs again, which brings me to one of my favorite guest appearances that we have every year on these rookie in-depth scouting reports, our QB guru, Foz. Man, Foz, how the heck are you doing this morning or this afternoon?
Doing great. So happy to be back for second week in a row talking some QBs. Let's get into it.
Yeah, man, you say you're happy now until we actually get to the guys that we're talking about. So I want you to hold your happiness for right now. We're talking tonight, in case I didn't bury the lead enough there. We're talking Ty Simpson, the quarterback out of Alabama. Just some few stats about Simpson. He measured in at 6'1", 211 pounds at the NFL Combine, and was seen as the QB1 of the class by Dan Orlovsky, several other organizations. He was a five-star recruit coming out of high school, waited his turn at Alabama before starting in his final season with the team. So, yes, you heard that right. He only has 1 year of starting experience, and we are going to get into that. In those 15 starts, he racked up 3,567 passing yards, 28 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. Also ran 70 times for 292 yards and 2 touchdowns with 7, yes, count them, 7 fumbles. 5 of those fumbles, I believe, we're going to reference, were back-to-back games. So ball security was certainly an issue for him. He was named to all SEC second team in 2025. Just a note that our show editor, Garrett, left on here. In the age of the transfer portal, the loyalty certainly is admirable, although might be a little bit foolish. So we're gonna jump into Ty Simpson, because as many of you know, if you're listening to this podcast, you've probably heard that he's a potential first-round pick in the upcoming NFL draft, going anywhere between the 18 to 25 kind of range. I've seen him get mocked. So we're going to discuss, is he worth that first-round pick, or are teams making a mistake if they draft Ty Simpson in the first round? We're going to get into that, but as we always do with the quarterback position, we talk things like mental game. We talk about how he reads the field, his processing. We talk about things like his does he lead receivers, his anticipation, timing, all sorts of things like that. We talk arm talent. Can he make the sideline throws? Can he make the deep throws? What's his arm power look like? In the age of fantasy quarterbacks, one of the most important things we talk is rushing and mobility. Does he have anything on the ground to get those coveted fantasy points from the quarterback position? And then we talk things like subtle arts, his sack avoidance, how he moves in the pocket. Does he manipulate the pocket well? Is he creative? And then we talk just how does he manage the overall game? So as always, we're going to jump right on into it. And I'm going to go to you first, Foz, talking about his mental game. What did you see here when it came to processing the field, leading receivers, anticipation, timing, anything related to his mental game?
Yeah, he graded out as average to below average for me. I gave him a 5.5 for progressions, which is pretty poor considering our scale there. He's a one half of the field type of read guy. Like, he's not going to go sideline to sideline like we talked about with Mendoza last week. Or even Beck later on. Like, he has a half of the field to read, and it's pre-called for him to read that half. And he can read like a player or two. Like, he can read the corner, which way they turn, which way they come up or back. He can read that side of the field for the coverage, but he's not going to work through like a whole field or have like half a concept on one side and the other half on the other and pick the correct side. He also struggles when the defense changes coverages. If they rotate, if they're showing a 3-high or a 2-high shell, and then they rotate to 3-high, he struggles with that post-snap. And so it really limits what he can do in terms of understanding what defenses are trying to do to him. And that's going to really hurt him at the next level. And you can see him, he throws some pretty bad interceptions. You can tell he's fooled by what the defense is doing. I know he played in the SEC, but the speed of the NFL is going to really make it even more challenging for him. So it's going to be one of those things where he needs things to be simplified for him moving forward. He's late on his throws half the time. He's staring down receivers, and I think he can do a lot better. He should be doing a lot better for how he's being talked about as a first round pick. It's pretty baffling, to be honest, with how he reads the field.
Rupert, you see it the same way?
Yeah, totally agree with. I gave him average for progressions, and that might be a little generous there. I did think that he has some of those anticipation and timing throws. It was fewer and far between. I think the first 2 games I watched, there's more of them, and the more I watched, it was just scarcer. The good anticipation throws were like layered throws over the middle of the field, where it's like a deep end and he's throwing it over, a linebacker and before the safety. So that kind of caught my eye. I gave him a 7 for it, but I've been thinking about coming down on that since the more I watched, the less I saw it. And it was in the Georgia and Tennessee game where I thought that he showed some of those really good throws, and then the more I watched, it was just not there.
The Tennessee game really makes you think that he can do it. There was a specific post route where there was a receiver lined up in the slot. He was working to the outside, the right side of the field, and he threw it over the linebacker's head, dropped it in the basket. But kind of like you said, Rupert, it was so few and far between of him actually making those throws. I saw a lot of what you were talking about, Foz. Just like when the ball was snapped, he stared down one receiver. And like, it didn't matter if that receiver was going to get open. It didn't matter if he was in double coverage. Like, that's the way he was looking, and that's where he was going to throw the ball, which I guess is fine if you're the quarterback for Alabama, right? And you've got Jeremy Bernard on the outside. You've got Ryan Williams on the outside, who are going to win in press man coverage. But when you get to the NFL and a lot of these corners are faster, they're smarter, the defensive backs are reading your eyes, like that's not going to fly at the next level. Like you're talking about a guy that might break Peyton Manning's record for most interceptions in a rookie season if he continues to do this. Like he doesn't go through his progressions. Like for me, I gave him a 5 for progressions, and like that even seems high. I think I could probably go down a little lower. I gave it a 5.5 for anticipation and timing, just because I did see it occasionally where he would, it'd be a mesh concept or an in route that you were talking about, Rupert. He would work over the field and kind of hit the guy in stride. He did that a lot with some of his faster wide receivers, but so many times he was throwing the ball behind receivers. He was throwing the ball kind of up and away from receivers. They had to work back to it. So just those sort of aspects he didn't do well. I think that he was told where to put the ball, and that's where he was going to put the ball. Like there didn't seem to be much reading of the defense. He wasn't trying to confuse or figure out what kind of coverage or shell they were in. He was just where he was told to go with the ball, that's where he was going to go with the ball. So that honestly scares me a little bit when you look at somebody that's getting touted as a first round draft pick. So moving on, this I would love to say this is kind of where it stops a little bit, but we're just going to keep going because the next thing we're going to talk about is arm talent. And I will start off by saying he had some decent arm talent. I think, the layered throws that you were talking about a little bit, Rupert, he could make those on occasion. He could push the ball down the field at times, but one of the things we're going to talk about is accuracy, the sideline throws, that sort of thing. Some stats to note: he had an 81.4 pass grade, which was 19th out of 150 qualifying FBS quarterbacks, a 75.3% adjusted completion percentage. That adjusts for drops and the times the ball, hit the receiver's hands, they didn't get it. That was 33rd in the FBS, and he had an 8.6 average depth of target, 6% break time throw rate, again, top 14% in FBS. So all those numbers point to good arm talent, but did we see it that way? I'm going to throw it to you first, Rupert.
I think he has solid arm talent, but nothing spectacular or elite to me that just screams first round talent. I think he has sufficient zip on the ball and has a quick release. I gave him a 7 I gave him a 6.5 for his arm power. So for reference, I think Nussmeier and Mendoza, who we talked about last week, have a little bit stronger arm. But what I did like is his release is quick. I thought his mechanics were solid. His accuracy is, I just gave it a 6.5. There's just too many misses, especially when he got on the move. I thought he'd be like thrown in the dirt. There's multiple times where his wide receiver's open and he throws it so low, his wide receiver has to go down and get it. And in college, that just ends a play and just leaving a lot of yards on the field where there shouldn't be a reason he should be off that much. But then you do see those throws where you're like, oh, that was nice. So again, the inconsistency with him, I thought was pretty startling. But overall, I think he has sufficient arm talent.
Yeah, what about you, Foz?
Yeah, I actually had the same grade as you for arm power with a 6.5. I graded him a 6 for accuracy, and then his deep ball sideline things for me was a 7 because I think I'd say he's got like adequate arm strength. Nothing really jumps out of the off the screen at you when he's throwing the ball, but like mechanically he is very sound. Really big fan of his mechanics. That was his highest grade for me. He had a 9 for that. It's just one of those things where it's not, his accuracy is like so inconsistent at times where you wish you could see more. He is actually pretty decent, like throwing to the sideline. He had a nice drop in the bucket against Oklahoma in the playoff game. That was a pretty deep on the sideline shot. He does okay with like those deep outs and comebacks, which are good and encouraging. It's just you want to see a little more. I think he throws a lot on the line. I think he could do better to, put a little more air into the ball at times and be a little more, show that he has a little more touch on his throws. And then over the middle of the field, he does struggle a little bit. He does have flashes like, you guys were talking about one against Tennessee. I remember one in that same Oklahoma game where he hit a nice post to the tight end going in to score. So he does show flashes. It's just, again, that consistency where, it's pretty average, it's pretty in line with some of these other guys in this class. So it's hard to see like where the hype is coming from again with this arm because it is just kind of like an adequate college arm that can show out here and there.
I did think he threw us some good zip, especially the short to intermediate area of the field. He could push the ball to the sideline and not really lose velocity very much. So that area, like I was impressed. I give him a 7 for arm strength. I think where he really struggled with this was pushing the ball deep downfield. The ball kind of fluttered. It floated in the air a little longer than you would want to it on those deeper throws down the field. So that's why I didn't push it up to like a 7.5, 8 on arm strength. I think that accuracy, again, just average. I gave him a 6. I mean, I noticed some of the same things you guys did. Throwing the ball towards the ground, receivers had to bend down to get it. Throwing the ball behind receivers when they're cutting across the middle of the field didn't lead receivers all that well, from what I noticed. Where I did differ a little bit from you, Foz, was his mechanics. I gave him a 7 for mechanics, so certainly not bad, right? But I think when it came to his pocket mechanics, I thought he threw the ball quickly. His arm angles were good. His base was good. Like I thought mechanically he was pretty sound while he was in the pocket. I think that kind of once he got outside of the pocket and started to get mobile, I think his mechanics suffered a little bit. I didn't think he was the most mechanically sound when he was trying to throw on the run. And for me, that impacted a lot of his throw on the runs when he was outside the pocket trying to push the ball downfield. They just didn't wind up where they were supposed to. Did you see any of that?
Absolutely. I know exactly what you're talking about because I kind of saw where when it was a clean pocket and he had time, he was able to really look good, like, mechanically. And then anytime there was pressure or you're right, when he was on the move, his arm strength would suffer. And that's because he wasn't able to get himself in, a good position. And his arm isn't good enough to compensate for when he has poor mechanics. So that's exactly what you were seeing, I think.
Yeah, again, not bad grades. I mean, 7's still a good grade, but it's something that I know. So what were you going to say, Rupert?
I'm right in the middle. I didn't say my grade on mechanics. I was an 8. I saw a lot of the same thing.
Yeah. So again, that's probably, it's not a negative, right? His arm strength isn't a negative thing. It's probably one of his most positive traits, but again, nothing spectacular, right? Nothing that kind of makes me wonder why we're talking about him as a first round talent. Next, we're going to go into the rushing and mobility because if you're looking at a fantasy football quarterback, which you guys that are tuning in, you're tuning in because you are in fantasy football leagues and you want to know who's going to get me the most fantasy football points. And at the quarterback position, the guys that do that on a consistent basis are the quarterbacks that run. You're looking at your Jaden Daniels rookie year, your Lamar Jacksons, even like a Patrick Mahomes, right, when he can get those yards downfield, your Jalen Hurts, the tush push rushing touchdowns, right? Like you're looking at guys that can provide rushing upside. A few stats about Ty Simpson. He had a 68.2 rush grade, not phenomenal. It doesn't say here where that ranks up against the other people, but it's not, again, one of those grades that really jumps off the screen at you. I'll throw it to you, Falls. What did you notice about his rushing ability, if any?
Yeah, I mean it's closer to zero than great for sure. He can take these open lanes when they appear to him, but he's not explosive. He's not going to make anybody miss. But like if there's a lot of space, he can take it. Like he's got good like straight line speed, I think. Other than that, like he's not going to break tackles or make anybody miss. He does good like creating like in the pocket too. So whenever he's like trying to get in or out, when he's trying to get outside the pocket, like he can do that and he can outrun the defensive line, which is helpful for him. So his mobility is okay for fantasy. It's probably not going to be much of something that's going to move the needle though. Like he's not going to get you rushing yards or touchdowns like all that often.
Just get the same way, Rupert.
Yeah, 100%. The small frame, not crazy athletic, and then the just rushing production overall, which is very minimal. I gave him a 4 for rushing acumen, same as I gave Nussmeier last week. I did think he did have some good escapability though, so he does like he's not going to rush, but like if he needs to, flush out of the pocket. Granted, once he's on the run, he doesn't throw the most accurately. But if he can escape and just, pick up some yards instead of taking a sack, he has enough like acceleration to be able to do that, but not going to lead to any kind of fantasy points for you.
Yeah, I think straight line speed is a good way to put it. If the hole's open, if he works to the outside, rolls out like and the hole's there, he's going to get you a first down. But he's also not the guy that's going to break any tackles. I mean, once a linebacker or safety meet him head to head, like he's getting tackled. He's not going around him. There's little rushing finesse like you see of those higher tier guys. I think he'll provide a few yards here and there, but he's not somebody that's going to get, your 7, 8, 10 fantasy points just on his legs alone. He's just not that type of guy. I did notice though, he could manipulate the pocket. This is going to move into a little bit of the subtle arts, but he could move throughout the pocket pretty well. I felt like he wasn't a statue standing back in the pocket. He could move on. He could avoid sacks really well. So I mean, this that was at least something that was at least sort of promising. Is he could manipulate and provide a little bit of rushing upside, but again, that it's not something that's going to set him apart at all. More below average than it is anything else. Well, we're going to take a slight break for just a second so I can tell you guys about all the good things going on at Couch Scouts. We are hard at work on a rookie guide. I think we just did another major update on the site. We've got about 50 profiles now up on the site. It's going to be closer to 65 or 70 by the time, hopefully, that the NFL draft happens. Anybody that you may need to know for your fantasy football drafts, we're going to have a rookie profile on them. We've done hundreds and hundreds of hours of film watch, and we put it in a nice concise thing. You can sort by our rankings. You can get in there and tell who we're higher on, who we're lower on, and who you need to know for your fantasy football draft so that you don't have to do the research yourself. We've done that for you. We also do a bonus podcast every single week. This week we're breaking down the film on Carson Beck, the other quarterback opposite of Fernando Mendoza in the national championship, what he looks like, if he's a guy that you need to know or not. There's a film room that we have. We also have, for certain packages, you get a one-on-one consultation, which have been killer in these upcoming draft seasons. We can get one-on-one advice on what direction you should take in your rookie drafts and talk to us and hear your fantasy football layout. So lots of great things. We try to pack as much value in that thing as we can for as little price as we can. So you can bundle annually, and it'll cost you about the cup of coffee if you do that. So it's a really good value for you guys. Make sure you guys get in on that. We also have a free Discord where guys are just talking shop and hanging out. We love to get to know our members. So make sure you guys get in on those things all over at couchscouts.com. Well, guys, the next thing we're going to talk about is his subtle arts. And I kind of mentioned this a little bit, right? His mobility, his ability to move in the pocket, extend plays, his creativity, sack avoidance, all things play into those subtle arts. Some interesting stats to note provided here: 18.3 pressure to sack rates. That was 90th of 150. Bottom 40% in the FBS at avoiding sacks when he's pressured. Again, not the greatest stat there. I mean, he did have interesting note a 3% turnover worthy play rate. So he's top 36% in FBS at turnover rate, protecting the ball when he was throwing it. We're going to get to his fumbles a little bit, I'm sure, in this subtle arts part of it. But I'm going to throw it to you, Rupert, first. What did you notice about anything related to this?
Yeah, one of the things I will say is I feel like at least he's coming in pro ready ish, and the fact that he knows how to play from under center, and just like that subtle kind of pocket movement, like he'll do a play action, get back there, move a little bit in the pocket to kind of reset his feet. I gave him a 7.5 for like his pocket manipulation there. Where I think he struggled was just feeling the rush and going through progressions fast enough to get rid of the ball, which we talked about earlier. I thought he took a lot of sacks, so I give him a 5.5. And hearing that pressure to sack rate checks out for me. Yeah, I too many sacks, and then a lot of those led to fumbles. Multiple times the defender's coming around the left tackle and swipes at his arm and knocks it out.
What about you, Foss?
Yeah, he graded out pretty well for me for sack avoidance and pocket manipulation. I think his like pocket manipulation is really really good. Just like Rupert said, being able to be under center and do those drops and then reset yourself within the pocket and like know how to take those little spaces is such a great skill for that translates to the next level. He's going to be comfortable doing that. And not a lot of these QBs that spend a lot of their time in shotgun the whole time are going to be comfortable when they get to the NFL and have to do those drops and have to handle these these rushes where you have to stay in the pocket or like you have like a one-way go out of the pocket if it is there. I agree. He graded out high in sack avoidance for me, which, I think I kind of lumped that in with the pocket manipulation where I didn't feel like he was really taking a lot of these hits that I saw some of these other guys taking and like he was able to get out of the pocket and scramble and get open and like, try to find open receivers outside of the pocket too. So I thought that was encouraging. The pressure to sack thing for me, like I appreciate the stat and everything. It's, I feel like when he is pressured, he just, he does take the sack. I mean, if he is pressured, he really struggles. I don't think his pocket mobility is something where it saves him from pressure. So I think I've read that a little differently than you guys did, I think, where I'm kind of separating out the pressure from the manipulation, if that makes sense.
No, it does. I think I'm right there with you too, because he doesn't have the creativity when he's pressured to avoid the sack. I mean, I think a lot of that boils down to like he's so locked in on a receiver, right? Like this is where he's going with the ball that if that receiver isn't open, it's going to delay him throwing the ball, and that delay is going to end up with him getting sacked. Like all of this stuff works together. So I kind of saw it the same way you did a little bit, Foz. Like I gave him a 6 for sack avoidance, and that might even be low. Like I felt like he moved in the pocket well. I gave him a 7 for creativity, 8 for pocket manipulation. Like I felt like he worked the pocket. He wasn't a statue. He could move, feel pressure well. It's just whenever that guy wasn't open, whenever his first read, and I'm saying first read, and honestly, it was his only read. Whenever that wasn't there, like he was just going to take the sack, and that, as Rupert said, translated to fumbles, like ball security for Simpson. And a lot of this boils down to I think his frame, but ball security was an issue for him. Like I mentioned, 5 straight games with a fumble. Just was not taking care of the ball well when he was pressured. I will note that he didn't put the ball in harm's way a lot, I felt like, which was a positive. Like he's pro ready in that aspect. That's different than the guy we're going to talk about on the bonus show who did put the ball in harm's way frequently. So at least he didn't do that, right? So again, I would agree with Rupert. Yeah, he's pro ready. I just don't know what upside is there. Rupert, you mentioned in our group chat today, he might be an okay regular NFL quarterback? Maybe. Like I still have serious doubts about that. But I know that he's not going to be somebody that I'm really interested in for fantasy. Like I'm pretty certain on that. Last thing we're going to talk about here is his game management. So how does this all work together? What's his feel for the game? Some of the pro ready stuff fits in to here as well. How does he read the defense? How does he go through his progressions? I mean, go through his reads. I mean, all that kind of stuff works with game management. So Falls, why don't you go ahead and tie a neat little bow on Ty Simpson as a prospect for us here?
Yeah, the ball security is going to be his biggest issue with the game management, right? Like too many times when he's pressured, and as we were saying, like when he's pressured, he's likely to get sacked here. He doesn't hold the ball very well when he's getting sacked, and there's a lot of like he doesn't see the rush or feel the rush. That those Oklahoma games where they get really creative with their pressures. Oklahoma Venables got a great scheme, and he was taking hits like where he didn't know where it was coming from, and even when he wasn't fumbling, he was kind of like juggling the ball, like so he's got to really do better at securing the ball in the pocket. And in terms of interceptions, you're right. He doesn't put the ball in harm's way a lot, but he does have some like head scratchers where like he gets fooled, right? He gets fooled by what the defense does. So I think he's not careless with the football, but he's liable to get fooled by the defenses and, throw some of those ones where you're like, oh, yeah, like there's one against Vanderbilt he throws in the red zone and, like he thinks the corner's going to come up and the corner drops underneath the corner route. And it's just like, it's easy for the defender. So he's got to clean up that stuff if he's going to earn the trust of these NFL coaches where he doesn't have a lot of other, really great traits. So he's got to clean up a lot of that game management stuff.
Yeah, I know the exact play you're talking about with Vanderbilt. I think there's another one against Georgia where the linebacker like peels out into coverage and he doesn't see him at all. Totally should have been interception, but was dropped. So I could see a situation where he's throwing a lot more interceptions in the pros than in college. Yeah, right in alignment there. I'm not really seeing much different, and I totally agree. He's got some stuff to clean up. He is pro ready, and the fact that he can play from under center, which if you give him credit, not a lot of guys do coming out of college nowadays. But I ended up with a final grade on him as a 63, which I feel pretty comfortable with.
Yeah,
that rating scale, that's an average backup.
Yeah, that's where our composite ended up with. It was a 63 even, which, as you mentioned, Rupert, puts him in the range of just average backup, and I feel pretty comfortable with that, honestly. So here's where the rubber really hits the road here. He is being talked about and mocked, like I said, in the first round of NFL drafts. If that's where he goes, I've seen this time and time again. First round NFL quarterbacks get first to early second round rookie draft capital in these rookie drafts that we do each and every year. And somebody's going to say, hey, look, he got a first round, draft spot. He's going to get the opportunity. And I'm not arguing that he's not going to get the opportunity. I think he'll get the opportunity to start. I'm just not sure that he's going to make anything of that opportunity. Like there's some serious concerns here with his processing, with his reading of the field. He doesn't add anything for rushing mobility really all that much. He's got size concerns. He's only got he's a 1-year starter. So you can't even fall back on productivity at all. Like for me, those are all serious red flags where he's a guy that I'm avoiding in all formats in my rookie drafts, and I'm not sure he's going to be somebody that's going to last in the NFL draft in the NFL at all. Foz, you made the mention off air that this is kind of a Josh Rosen situation. Is that where you feel comfortable talking about it?
Yeah, I just hope he doesn't go that high, right? If he goes in, the top 15 like Josh Rosen did, then we're talking about that, like where it's a complete disaster for probably the NFL team and you if you're drafting him in fantasy. He graded out 63 as well for me, which has him like essentially equal to Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders last year, which makes perfect sense with what you were just saying, Jackson, where he may get a chance, but like, is he going to do anything? Like neither of those two did anything with their chance this year with the Browns. And nevertheless, they'll be back this year somehow. But we persist here on the podcast with with these mid quarterbacks that are getting backup grades that are starting for NFL teams somehow. But yeah, no, don't. I saw him in a mock draft, post combine mock draft, go at 112 in a Superflex, and that is just this is outlandish. Like, do not draft him in the first round. I don't care if you're competing. I don't care, like, depth issue. It's just not worth. It's not worth the pick. Like, even in a class like this where it's kind of weak across the board at all the positions, after the first, like 5 picks, you're better off taking a flyer at one of these, like, running backs like Emmett Johnson or something than doing Ty Simpson. To be honest, like, it's really he should be off your radar completely.
Completely agree. I was just on CBS Fantasy Football today this morning, and he pulled up the consensus first round, I think, from Fantasy Pros, and Simpson's 109. I was just like, I could never get on board with that. If he becomes Brock Purdy, Bo Nix, I'm fine with that miss, right? I just don't see it. I don't see the upside, and totally agree. I'd rather take a chance on a running back or wide receiver that I like a lot more and have a much higher grade on, even if he does get that great draft capital. And I saw a perfect tweet that a lot of people have been comping him to Brock Purdy, and someone was like, I tried to find the tweet so I could give him credit because it was a great one, but it basically said the great thing about Brock Purdy is you got Brock Purdy late in the draft. He wasn't a first-round pick. You didn't have to spend a first-round pick on him. That was the thing. This is not a Brock Purdy situation because he's getting this first-round hype.
Yeah, I mean, Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant, right? Like, the price was much different. Like, at 109, like, I can't believe that. Like, you're talking about a guy like Omar Cooper Jr. versus Ty Simpson. And for me, that's not even a conversation. Like, that I'm not willing to have that conversation at all. So completely off our boards at Couch Scouts. Don't draft him. Not worth it. Not really a whole lot of upside there. And that's where we're getting into the podcast. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, like and subscribe. Give us a 5-star rating. That really helps people find our show, get involved in our community. Well, make sure you check out the Discord. That'll be in the show notes that we post on this podcast. Get in there, chop it up with a bunch of guys that just want to talk fantasy football and have a good time getting to know each other. We hope to see you guys over there. We'll be back next week breaking down some more prospects. We're getting close to our second look series. So that'll be fun as we go back to some of these guys that we either have some bold opinions on or we did it way early in the cycle. And we're going to see if we still like them that much. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week.